So we've got the unique ID, doing Go programming, web programming. We create a cookie and we store a unique ID in it. Now we want to take that unique ID and when we use it, get a piece of information out of some sort of data storage on the server. So I was just sharing the analogy that I recognize somebody that's unique. They're unique. Their face is unique. When I recognize them, if I have history with them, my server pulls up that history based upon their unique ID. Same with servers. So we're going to need some sort of a little database, which will be a map. So var db map and string, because we're going to do string, and that's the unique ID, because the unique ID is a string. And then we're going to store a user in it. And then we're just going to do that, and this is a composite literal, right? And I have to do equals. Var db is equal to, and it's a composite literal. So there's the type, and then in curly braces and values, but it's just no values. So it automatically makes it. And then I need a type user, which is a struct. And so in there I'm going to have first, which will be a string, and I could have last, which is a string, and I could have maybe a logged in field, which could be bool, whether or not they're logged in. Does that look good? And now I need to be able to grab some information, like get them logged in, so to speak, right? Like just get some information and assign them a cookie and then pull that information out of the database based upon their cookie. So let's do a template. Templates. And index.go.html. And Emmet, magic of Emmet. And then down here, we're going to do a form. And action defaults to the same location, same URI if you don't specify it. I do want a method of post. And I need an input and type text. And name will be first name. And ID is how I target this with things in HTML. But I'm just going to not do that. I'm going to do this. This is a little quicker. First, okay. And then another input, type text, name, last name, placeholder, last name, last name, first name, and then I need an input, submit, and logged in. Input, checkbox, and name, logged in. And it doesn't have a placeholder, so maybe this would be a good idea to have a label. And we'll put a break between each of these. That didn't work out so well. I'm just a poor boy, though my story's seldom told. Yeah, that's good. I remember that. All right, so that's kind of what we're shooting for. We just saw an example, but we decided to talk through it. All right, so we got our little form they're going to fill out, and they submit that. But now we need to execute it. So we need some more stuff up here. And we need another variable. Variable TPL is a pointer to template from template. And this is all stuff that is familiar to us, right? Funny how you speak the language enough and it becomes familiar, but then you get into the new stuff and you're like, oh, I don't know these things. And I need to import HTML template. It's good? You guys know all that? I need parse glob. And then down here, instead of that, tpl.execute template, writer, index.go HTML, and no data is getting passed in. Cool. So now we have our little database. So we're checking to see if they have a cookie. If they don't have a cookie, we create a cookie and we store in a UUID there. And then we set the cookie. We haven't done anything with that cookie. I think all of that code right there could kind of be abstracted. You know, put it into its own function. Does that sound like a good idea? Are we getting too complex? You following me, Nina?
Yeah, I'm following you, but I'm not sure why you want to extract it.
I don't know. It's just like, you want to leave it there? Let's leave it. Okay, let's leave it. So then now, when somebody fills out the form, where does the form get submitted? It gets submitted back to index, right? What function runs when I go to index? Which function runs? Foo. All right, and my method's going to be get or post. If I submit that form, my method's going to be post, right? Method post. Right, so now I just need to handle my thing. So if request method is equal to method HP method post, I need to process my form. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And up here it's does that make sense? Yeah?
Yeah.
And here it's execute template. That's obvious. So I ask for first name, ask for last name, and I ask for logged in. Right? Request.form value. And request.form value could have been first name, right? That was the field. I named that in my form. First name, right?
Yeah.
And then this one is request.form value. Last name. And this one's a bool. Logged in's a bool. So I can't store a string here. Things coming back from the form are a string, but I could do checking. So if request.form value, and this was logged in, logged in.
Yeah.
So the name names the variable in which the value that the user enters into the form field gets stored when the form's submitted. If that's logged in, and that's equal to on, then this will store true there. This expression will be evaluated. It'll evaluate to true or false, and then it'll be assigned to that. Yeah? Alex, you see that?
Yeah.
Patrick, you see it? Nina, you see that?
I think so.
Right? Because logged in could be on or nothing. You know? And so that's going to be like, hey, if it's true, if that's true, then that'll be assigned there.
Is on a keyword for checkboxes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
now,
what
yeah,
comes back when a checkbox is checked.
Okay.
Right? The form sends in on. All right, so I got first, last, and that gives me a user. So I could create a user. My struct, first, last, and logged in. Composite literal, right? The type, and then curly braces, and the values to populate the fields. And so here they are, first, last, logged in, same order, first, last, logged in, correct? Cool. And so now I have that, and I've also created this database, right? It's a map. It's just a simulated database. It's actually just a map. But you know, it's key, get the value. And it stores a user.
But essentially that's what a map is, isn't it?
Yeah, essentially, yeah. Database, you look things up by keys to get a record or whatever. But so here, I'm now going to, in my database, right? So DB, I want to make a new entry. DB at what? It's going to be c.value. Because c.value is my unique ID, correct?
Yeah.
It's my session ID. So that session ID is going to be storing that. It's my user. Because that's what my database does. It takes a string and it stores a user. So I've said, okay, with this key, it's equal to this value. And I should have selected all that. With that key, the session ID equals to that value. So I've stored, associated with my session ID, a user. Nice, huh?
Right, yeah.
All right, so there's my user. And that's all stored. So I've processed the form submission. That's pretty good. And then what would be the next step? I kind of want to prove that. I want to go to some other page and just with the unique ID, pull that data out of the database and display it on that page. Does that sound good? So maybe over at bar we'll do that. So at bar I need to get the cookie. So does that look like good code for getting the cookie?
Yeah.
I get my cookie, and if there is no cookie, we're done here. So redirect. What's another way I could have written that redirect that we learned tonight?
Oh,
Instead of doing it like this, it's going to be my header, right, of my response. So it's going to be my response, header, set, and then it takes a key and a value, and I'm going to change the location. I'm going to change it to here, and then w.write header, and it takes an int, and this is just C other. That's another way we could have done that.
okay.
And we might want to go look at write header. I'm just having a question myself. And that's going to be part of response writer. And here's write header. Sends an HTTP response header with status code. So it sends the response header with status code. If write header is not called explicitly, the first call to write will trigger an implicit write header. Thus, explicit calls to write header are mainly used to send error codes. So that's maybe not the best way to do it. I might try it that way just to see what happens. Like, I'm interested in exploring that later. We got enough on our plate. So that's just kind of like a little interesting curio for further investigation. And now what I want to do here, if I do redirect, stop this code, please. Don't go any further in this function. Return from this function. Right? So we're done in this function. We're going somewhere else now. All right, so we got the cookie. What do we need to do to get if we have a cookie, then I want to pull something out of the database, right? I want to pull a user out of the database. A user is equal to database and C value. Give me my user.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Now, there's an interesting and very cool thing you could do with databases. I think it's called the comma OK idiom. Look for that. No, it's not there. Let's go to effective go. There it is. For obvious reasons, this is called the comma OK idiom. So when you're checking a map, right here there's a map called time zone in this example. And so they're saying time zone, Tasmania, or I don't know, Tanzania, or whatever the heck time zone that is. They're saying if this entry in the map, right, so this map, this key, give me back the value. And a map will also return OK. And you could check to see if a value is actually returned. Because interestingly with a map, like if I make a map, m : equals make map string int. Okay, so that's one way I can make a map. I could have also just said m : equals map string int doom. I could have done it either way. Because this is a composite literal. There's the type, curly braces, and values, no values. But this will force go under the covers to make the map. Or I could just explicitly say make the map. So we'll just comment it out. We'll run it both ways, and you'll see that in action. But if I make a map, and then I say map Todd, I changed that, by the way, because I like my last name. I don't like my first name.
Really?
No. I've been called Odd my entire life. Yeah, Odd. Subconsciously, it has an impact. That's why I'd never name anybody Malachi or Melissa or Melvin, right? Because those are mal, right? Malicious, malevolent. Language matters. But if I ask for M. McLeod, oh, I'm just going to do M. McLeod. Like there's nothing there, right? What do you think is going to happen? Is it going to blow up? Give me the value that's stored at this key in this map.
Just gonna give you null or nothing.
Gives me the 0 value. Interesting, huh? And it works both ways here.
Oh yeah, because it's an end.
So I could store something there. What's stored at this value? No longer 42. So when I check if something is there, I could use that comma OK idiom, and I could do I could store that somewhere. So I could be like, you know, Todd age is equal to M. McLeod. And I could store here, I could do this. It's all the same thing, right? Well, apparently not. M. McLeod is equal to 45, because I need this. Right? But I could also do this. Now, why would you want that OK there? You want that OK to make sure you're not getting back a 0 value. Because a map is always going to give you back a value regardless of whether or not you've put a value there. So you might get a value back, which is the 0 value, and proceed with your code, but you never put that value there. So you need a way to check, is this like a real value that I put there? Or is it just the 0 value? That makes sense? So that's what that allows us to do. And then we could do this really funky, cool, where we could have a little statement. And so we could do, let me just do it right here. Right here, a statement, if all of that, and then a semicolon, and I could just put OK right here, right? And so the condition checks, this condition checks, hey, is this okay? And if so, I'll run this. So, and this limits the scope of all this to that area. So it just contains scope of variables. So that's just a little idiom for writing Go code. Nothing happened because I don't have, it's not okay, right? So if, and this evaluated to false. That's evaluated false. But now if I run it, it evaluates to true, right? Because this okay is true. And you'll sometimes see it like this, if not okay. So that's the comma okay idiom. And here's where that phrase comes from, comma okay idiom. That's the best comma okay idiom description I've ever given in my life. Wasn't that great?
Yeah.
I like it. I like that. So we were working on sessions. And so here we're getting a value out. But we want to make sure we're not just getting out an empty user. So we're going to do if you okay dbc, but we're also going to need to maybe use you. So we're not going to do that on one line because we don't want to pull you out twice. So we've got you and okay. And so if not okay, right? So we've used okay, so that underline went away. We still have to use you. So if not okay, we never got a user. So there's no user stored there. So I say we just send them back to enter some user information, right? They have a session, but for whatever reason, they never entered user information. And this is web programming. It's kind of like spaghetti code. Because you have to stop and start thinking about logic. It's like logic. You got to start thinking about all your pathways. Like when you build it from the ground up, you got to think about all your pathways. So there we have, right? So this person, for whatever reason, they got here, and they have a session, they have a cookie. Could that happen? Yeah, because you come here, and you don't have a cookie, so you're given a cookie, and then you've never submitted the form, and this executes, and then you just say /bar, and you go to bar, and then this runs and gets your cookie, and so you have your cookie value, and then it says cookie value db, and gives you back an empty user, and this okay will be false. So if not false, which is true, double negative. That sounds weird, right? But it's like, I am not unhappy. Double negative, I am happy, right? But then we're just going to redirect them, and you go back to the login page to fill out that form. Does that logic make sense? So next thing, if we get here, there is a user. So we could then do at bar this is still, what the heck? Why did I make a Go file? I was going to delete that.
You want to make a HTML?
Yeah, bar Go HTML. And I'm like, package? Wait a minute, what am I doing? And so we are at bar. And we are ready to first, last, logged in. And are those the right? First, last, logged in. comprende?
Yeah.
And then down here, template, oops, sorry, tpl.execute, writer, bar.go HTML, u, user. Does that look like good code? Is that, we covered everything? Get rid of that. Well, let's find out. So we are in 4404. Where am I now? So I have Foobar. I'm just going to drop that into our code. That runs foo. Right? And then one of our use cases was I go to bar without ever having filled this form out. So what happens when I go there? This brings me right back here. And so that was this pathway running right here. So where did bar, we came in, we had a cookie. Let's just confirm that, right? Developer tools, here's our cookie. Application, cookies, right there. There's our cookie. So we have a cookie. So that's fine. We didn't redirect off that, but we got here and got sent back because we don't have a user. We're not, so I'm not okay to proceed. So then we put in a user. That's a good name, James. Logged in, submit. And when I submitted, my cookie's still there. My submit was just to bring me right back to this. I didn't get any feedback, right? That kind of sucked. We'll fix that. And the way we'll fix that, is if, and so if there is that you have that user info, and that got passed in, we can show it there too. And then we also have to pass in then to index. Yeah, here. We also have to pass into index u, which means that where is u being created? Right here. Right? So we need to just put that up at a high level. And so we'll do var u user, right? Set it to 0 value. So I'm kind of curious if the template will say, yeah, you passed in a user. You didn't pass in first, right? 0 value, but that will be there. So we'll see if this runs. We'll put this in front of it because otherwise we'll just be seeing a lot of maybe emptiness, except for bool will be there. So let's watch this again. Control C will stop our server. Clear it, and then go run main. And clear our cookie. And then here, refresh. And it did put out first last logged in as false, right? So we're going to clean this up just a touch more. Put a break. And we're going to do if first. So that's if first, and let's see what happens now. Control C, go run. Clear our cookie. So now it didn't show out. We have a cookie. And we go to bar. Just brings us right back. And 8E9C, it's always interesting when you just kind of watch the cookie. Now we enter Miss Moneypenny. Logged in, doesn't matter, that's just another little thing we put on for fun. That might confuse people. And we hit submit, and we came back, and it should have created our user, maybe, and shown us our user, right? We submitted, and the user should have been created and passed in. So what happened there? So we've got our user, the request method came in as post, we got first name logged in, all that, we created the user, and we said dbc value u, and then we came down here and we passed the user in, because we redeclared it right here now, right? So we overrode it. Actually, that user existed in here, but this one had an outside scope, so we need to take that out now. So this had it was a new, is shadowing, variable shadowing. Right? Do you see that? So now let's fix it and run it again. Control C, K, go run. And delete our cookie. So we come here, we get a cookie. 38.4C. We go here. We get sent back. We should still have the same cookie, 38.4C. And then we do Miss Moneypenny. Logged in. Sweet. And we say, let's go look at bar. It's pretty cool, right? But it took a little thinking. And 32 minutes. One thing I'd do to clean this up, we just grab that right there and do a little bit of breaks between them. So logged in's really not doing anything for us. So I think just for this to be a little bit of a cleaner first example, no sense confusing people like, what does that mean? You're logged in. All right, so I'm going to clean logged in out of that. Though this was a little bit interesting right here. I think that's it. See if there's any red. So I just look over here on the side because WebStorm will highlight things that are wrong with a little red line. I think that would all still run. So we had a cookie. Right, request the cookie if we get it. If not, we create the cookie. We just say, hey, from package HTTP, type cookie, give me its address. The name and value are this. It's the UUID. We store that in the cookie. So we got a UUID in the cookie. And so we always have that cookie. And it's either created or it's retrieved from the request. And then when we process a form submission, we have a little database, a little map, and we store as the key the session ID, and then the value is just user information. And then we could get the cookie, and we could get that cookie value out, right? See value, and we could access an entry in that map, and assign that to the user and check if it's okay, and redirect if it's not. If it's hey, there's actually not an entry in the map. And then we execute our template. That's not that bad. And that's like the first step towards creating sessions. and at the same time, it's like a fair amount to wrap your head around.
Yeah, it is.
So let's try coding it up ourselves and do what you can do. Start with 03UID. That's up there on GitHub, and see if you could recreate that.